Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in this one I'm gonna go over the basics of the UU Matter Gigafactory and how you can use it to make self-sustaining DFC designs by basically taking a portion of the power that the DFC is producing and making more fuel for the DFC, and this loop goes on endlessly. You can potentially turn it into a clean looking base like this, and in this video I will also cover the basics of Yharonite production from polonium. So without any further ado, let's get straight into this. Now, before we get into any of the DFC builds, it's important to remember that this reactor is nothing to joke about. If you make a mistake and it goes boom, then it takes a very large chunk of area with it depending on the fuel that you are using. So for this very purpose, it's important to use the high energy field jammer. Now, it is crafted using the following recipe in Elkator's edition. So yeah, it doesn't really need alexandrite in this version. And it's very important to craft this because it ignores all of the Fort Wagner explosions in a 300-meter radius. So please craft this. Now, next up, we come to the UU Matter Gigafactory. Now, this one is pretty simple. It takes power and it converts all of the power into UU matter. And this UU matter can then be converted into other fluids using the industrial mixer along with the update for the Screaming Scientist update. So if we put the Screaming Scientist upgrade, you can see the texture change and now it can accept UU matter in it. Without it, it can't. So yeah, that is how you use the UU Matter Gigafactory. Now the rate of production of the UU Matter depends on the amount of power that you are supplying it with. So for example, right now we are producing half a millibucket of UU Matter per second. With 1 million HE per second or 1 mega HE per second, we will produce 1 millibucket per second. Now let's bump this number up with 10 mega HE per second, we will produce 10 millibuckets per second. And finally, with 1 tera HE per second, we produce 1 million millibuckets per second. That's 1000 buckets per second. So with all of this UU matter produced in the factory, we can now pump it into the industrial mixer. It will go in right here. And as soon as we start supplying it with power, now all we need is a fluid identifier. So here I'm going to use antimatter, and as soon as I place it in, the mixer will produce antimatter for us. And also it can take speed upgrades like this, and it does the production in bulk. So yeah, this can also serve as a tank as it has a very big internal buffer in it. So here's an example of a self-sustaining design. I have a single emitter going into this reactor, or the core, sorry. The core will power the FENSU, which is in buffer mode. So the FENSU will also power the Gigafactory, and this in turn will power two mixers, one running antimatter, another one anti-sherbedium, and these fluids will then be used to power the reactor. So here's the entire loop completed, and we have the fuel here. So if I quickly start this emitter right here, now we will start producing roughly 23.78 terawatt per second, but you can see this number going down every once in a while because the power, some of the power is going into the factory in order to produce the UU matter. So that is how you can make a closed loop using the UU Matter Gigafactory. The more power that you are producing, the faster this whole thing will work, and you can potentially even power other DFC reactors with it. Now it's important to build DFC reactors in a chunk so that it is easy to chunk load the whole design, as chunk loading is very important, especially when it comes to DFC reactors. And also use the high energy field jammer. Now for the cores, we have 4 of the cores available here. Each one of them have different power and different multipliers for heat and fuel. Same goes for all of the catalysts. Now for the core, I'm going to use Thingy, which is the most powerful core out there. And all of the catalysts, as you can see, have different modifiers, so I'm going with the sherbedium. We start with the DFC fuel injector placed on the very bottom, leaving a 3-block gap, and on the top we place a DFC core. Now from this DFC core, leave out 3 blocks and then place our first emitter. And this emitter will go straight from the core into a second one, which is once again placed at a 3-block distance. Now the second emitter will face into a third emitter placed perpendicular like this. And finally, this emitter will go into the fourth emitter, which will loop back into the core. So that's why this is a looped single core DFC reactor. In front of the fourth emitter, we are going to place down a DFC receiver, and that's it. That's the basic design done. And for the final component, we have the stabilizer, a very important component. So we place it on the top facing into the core like this. So that's the entire DFC setup done. Now, in order to run this first, we need to place the core and 2 catalysts on the top and bottom like this. And with this, our DFC design is done. Next up, we connect all of the emitters and also the stabilizer with power. These 5 components will use power in this build, and the DFC receiver will produce power. So it will give our output. So I'm going to run this on a separate loop, and the output will be on a separate line, and it will go into an FENSU, which will be connected on the very middle like this. Now I'm going to run the cable and connect it like this. So that's the input and output power done. Also, we need cryogel in all of the DFC emitters and the receiver. Don't forget this, otherwise it will just turn into lava. So with the cryogel placed, I'm going to make an infinite source using a tank, but cryogel production is easy. So yeah, I have made a video on it before, and that's it. So with that, we have supplied cryogel to all of the emitters and the receiver, and our build is kind of good to go. Now let's take care of the fuel section of the build, which is going to be antimatter and anti-sherberium. So we bring these lines back and we connect them to the industrial mixers with the Screaming Scientist upgrade placed inside. Power for these mixers will go from the bottom like this, and we place a UU Matter Gigafactory. Now we connect this factory to both of these mixers, one of them set to antimatter, another one set to anti-sherberium. And make sure to turn the factory on. So as soon as it starts receiving power, we can run it. Now we need to fuel this reactor up so it can produce some power beforehand. And for that purpose, I am going with 16 barrels of anti-sherberium and 16 barrels of antimatter in the whole build. And the FENSU is placed in a buffer mode, so as soon as the DFC reactor starts producing power, it will start powering the Gigafactory, and which will in turn produce more fuel. So that's it, I have placed down the fuel, 16 barrels of it, and once that's done, we are actually ready. So place the normal stabilizer in there. The first emitter is set to 100, the second one to 11, third one also to 11, and fourth one to 100. With all of that done, we can now start our first emitter. It goes here, the second one, and the third one, and finally the fourth emitter. And with that, we will start producing power. So the heat saturation is at 91%, and we are producing over 6 peta-HEs per second. Now that is a lot of power. And as you can see, we are producing more than enough antimatter and anti-sherberium to keep this reactor running and potentially even power more reactors using this. So yeah, 6 peta-HEs per second. Now the power production is a little bit less in this world. I don't know why that is happening. I tried figuring it out. But even at this rate, we will fill the entire FENSU within what, like 25 minutes, or yeah, approximately 25 to 30 minutes. So that's pretty decent power production we have here. Next up, I'm gonna go over Yharonite Production, which needs what, 50 GHz of power, as the tooltip says in JEI. For this, I'm using 3 DFC emitters, 2 cores powered by liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen, and the containment field set to maximum using the undefined stabilizer lengths. So the first emitter at 55, second emitter at 100, and the third emitter also set to 100. And this will output 65 giga SPK. Now this is more than enough for what we need to convert polonium into Yharonite. So in a little while, we should see one of the batch turn into Yharonite. I'm going to speed this process up. And yeah, here we go. So that's our first batch, or the first stack of polonium turned into Yharonite. Now, I think the more power that you are putting into this, the faster it will turn. As for the power output of this 2-core 3-emitter design, we will get more than what we are getting from the loop design, which is 6.45 peta-HE per second. Now, I will show you my old world, the test world that I was doing it, or testing this whole design in. In that world, I was getting more power out of the looping DFC design. I don't know why I'm not getting it in this world. So as you can see, I made a similar design, the very same configuration, and I'm getting 6.65 peta-HE per second. I don't know why that is. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. There were questions regarding the whole DFC Yharonite production thing. So yeah, I hope this video answered them. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comment section, and also same goes for suggestions. And yeah, peace out, stay safe. I'll see you guys next time.